Hey, what's up, guys? Good afternoon. My name is Jason Flame, and welcome to Master Motivation this Monday, December 13th. Super excited to have our guest today, Mr. Adam Kifer from Relentless Media. And I'm excited to have you on the show and talk a little bit more about what you do, because you do a lot more than just that. As a martial artist, as a school owner, and as an entrepreneur. So, as a reminder to those of you watching out there, and we'll watch this later, Master Motivation came about as really just an idea as I was sitting watching social media throughout COVID, and just kind of the doom and gloom, and a lot of everybody kind of having a hard time. And I said, well, what can we do to bring a little bit more positivity, a little bit more light to social media? And I said, well, hey, I know a lot of cool people that have inspired me and motivated me in my business, in my life, and in martial arts, and why not bring them on a show and let them tell their story? So hopefully, as you watch this, you'll take some nuggets from Adam, and feel free to ask any questions as we go along. So without further ado, Mr. Adam Kifer.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited. I know you've had a lot of awesome people from our industry on here, so I was honored to be invited and looking forward to chatting today.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've been fortunate in the almost 30 plus years of martial arts, as a student, as an instructor, as a school owner, and as a consultant, to meet so many just amazing people. And so it's been great to highlight them and let them tell their story. So, you're going to have that opportunity today. And I want to just give a shout out to Mr. Kevin Kowalczyk, Mr. K out there in Colorado. He's saying what's up. He's always watching, and I'm sure he'll have some questions. So, Adam, do me a favor and just kind of let's introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your background, maybe
Sure.
early on, and kind of tell your life story, if you will.
Yeah, so excited. Going back in the archives, so I grew up as a dojo rat. So my parents owned a martial arts school since before I was born. So pretty much my entire childhood was on the mat, causing trouble and kicking and punching everything in sight. And then when my dad decided to retire, I went and worked with my brother and ran his school for a while. And the cool thing about being in a martial arts family was early on, I got exposed to martial art business, like right out of the gate. So back in the day, it was like the EFC conventions, right? Mm-hmm. So I remember going and hearing Dave Kovar and Ernie Reyes and all these great people speak at a young age that I looked up to, which now I'm fortunate enough to be working with our agency, those same people, which is like, man, when I got the first text from them, I was like a little kid on Christmas. So
totally.
But it's been cool to be around the industry for as long as I have, just sort of learning at a young age, and then learning what to do, what not to do, and sort of how everything has been pushing forward and moving forward in our industry. And then about probably 4 or 5 years in working with my brother, I got offered to go work with Michael Prella in New York. So I went out there originally to be a consultant on the martial arts side, and I did that. And then they needed some help on iLoveKickboxing, so got moved over to the franchise world, which was a different learning curve, and sort of got thrust into running ads for 350 locations overnight.
Wow.
so it was thrown in the fire, but also very appreciative to be able to be forced to learn all of that really, really fast and learn what works and what doesn't. And then I was there for a few years, and then they did a restructuring, and I thought it was a good opportunity for me to do my own thing at that time. So it was like, Arizona is a beautiful place to live. I'll move out there. So we took over an existing martial arts school that was struggling out here, built the agency, and that's sort of where we're at now. We're getting ready for location 2 for the school, and the agency, we've been super fortunate with to assemble a great team and just be growing like wildfire. So it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, awesome. That's a lot of stuff, a lot of things going on, and you're a young guy too, so a lot has happened.
Well, saying that.
Well, we like to at least think that since we feel young, we are young, right?
Yes.
Tell us, so where are you originally from? Where'd you grow up?
Yeah, Chicago area. So we grew up in the suburbs of Chicago in a town called Wheaton, Illinois, which has the most churches per square foot out of anywhere in the country. Fun fact. Okay. And yeah, that's sort of where we came from. Very middle, like lower middle class family, I would say, growing up most of my life. So it was, we definitely weren't like in poverty, but it was, we also didn't have parents that like gave us stuff. We had to earn like everything, which was something I'm super grateful to this day for my parents teaching me that.
Yeah, that self-employed life, as an
Yep.
entrepreneur, there's always the highs and the lows and everything in between. My father was in construction from for as long as I can remember, even before I was born, and he became he built custom homes, right? And so just like you said, it's
Nice.
like sometimes things were like really good, and then
Yep.
sometimes you're just like, well, I don't know what we're doing for Christmas this year, so
Yeah.
but there was definitely a work ethic that was taught,
Yes.
and having a father who is an entrepreneur and always looking for different business opportunities. You learn how to hustle, learn how to grind,
100%.
learn how to just work for every inch of what you do. So talk about, you grew up in a martial arts family, right? Your
Yeah.
parents owned the martial arts school, and what was that like? Because I have a son who does martial arts, and like I always think like, God, that's got to kind of suck, because dad's the instructor and the boss sometimes, and your
Yep.
trainer, and what was that like for you?
Man, that's a really good question. I've never been asked that before, but I had a mostly love, a little bit of hate relationship with growing up in a martial arts school. I think the hate part was like, for some reason, my dad loved doing staff meetings after classes on Monday nights at 9 o'clock. Like, I don't know where that idea or thought process came from, but I just remember Monday nights, like I'd be just wishing to go home and go to sleep, and like there's no organized staff meetings. They last like 2.5, 3 hours, and we get out like super late. So it was like I was always dead tired on Tuesdays. So that part sort of wasn't great, but the the great parts by far outweighed like that small challenge that I had growing up. So like I think for me a couple of things that was really really cool was that I had no excuse not to train or practice
Hmm.
because I was in a martial arts school 24 hours a day. So I got really creative with finding new ways to train techniques and drills and things, and it was mostly just because I didn't really have anything else to do at that
Hmm.
time. So
Hmm.
that part of it was awesome, and I think too, just growing up in a culture and environment that breeds leadership and integrity and focus and discipline, and being surrounded by that all the time, constantly, not just by my own parents, but by the instructors that they had there and the people they had brought in. Man, I grew up surrounded by a lot of mentors that were looking out for my best interests, and was really, really fortunate as a kid to know to be around in that group. And I may not have noticed it at the time, but that's part of why I'm so passionate about martial arts today. Is because like everything that I've attributed to my success has really come from me growing up in a martial arts school and learning those important life skills and character traits and work ethic, like you said. And man, for my kids, I'm trying to balance the same thing where I don't want them living in a martial arts school, I'm fortunate enough not to be in my school every day. I just sort of go in and teach when I want to and enjoy it, and get to go watch and enjoy their classes, which is cool. So I'm trying
Hmm.
to make sure that they don't feel like they're living in the school, but they're still experiencing the great benefits that I received growing up. And then yeah, like I said, I think my dad, I was very fortunate that he was very well connected, like in the EFC group. So we got to have like all sorts of great people come to our school and teach seminars and teach us how to be just better martial artists and better people. And that like there's no value on that. It's priceless in my eyes to be able to learn all of that for no expense on my own part at a young age.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm super grateful that I had that opportunity, and now I'm just trying to make it a even better experience for my kids and give them the best parts and take away the worst parts.
Right, right. Yeah, we learn a lot through our own kids, that go through our martial arts schools. Those of us that are martial artists and have children and put them in our program. I mean,
Yep.
my entire school changed from the time my daughter was born, really, in how we did things, and just all the little details of. I mean, we didn't even really have a little dragons program. We didn't really have a belt system that went with the age groups. You'd be a white belt for like a year before you could even test for yellow belt if you started doing your four,
I remember those days.
yeah, and it was just totally different. And man, the testing process, just you learn so much about how what you learn a lot about what to do and what not to do for sure,
Yes.
because you see it
Yes.
through different eyes, and I can remember, man, I bet this will hit home for you and a lot of school owners that have you know gone through from a young age as an instructor and then had kids. I used to have parents tell me all the time, well, you'll see when you have kids. You
Yep.
know, that was the constant thing. You'll see, and I'd be like sticking to my guns, and like, I came from kind of an old school background of martial arts, and it just,
Sure.
that's the way it was. Like, we weren't changing anything. Well, you'll see, and I always hated that. That was the worst for
Yep.
me. And then as I got older, I go, man, if I could just smack myself in the head like 20 years ago, I probably would have been a lot more successful earlier on, and given people a little better experience. But what do you remember as far as, training in the martial arts? You've been training a long time,
Yep.
so you've probably got some of that old school background as well.
Yes.
How has martial arts changed in your mind,
Oh my
and what
God.
you've seen over the years?
So the martial arts itself, it's funny. Like, if I think back to my black belt test, so I started when I was 3, and I tested for my black belt when I was 10. I think I'm getting that right. And we had like 360 self defense skills we tested on.
Mm.
We had, I want to say, 24 open forms. We had like 6 or 7 weapons forms. Then you had one-on-one sparring, 2-person sparring. God, I'm probably missing stuff, like 30 basic kicks, like 30 basic punches, and like we're
Hmm.
just listening to all this stuff. And like now, I was like, getting kids to learn that much would be impossible right now, and I don't think you'd have people sticking around that long. So I think the curriculum engineering has really, actually, I think it's improved. I know some people think of it as watering down, but when I look back and think about the 360 self-defense skills I learned, there's probably like 20 of them that would have actually worked. I think I
Right.
think a lot of them were just like masters getting creative and like coming up with new stuff, like our system has the most type of thing. So I'm actually, like, over the years, one thing I've seen more of a focus on is quality over quantity, in a lot of places in the martial arts, and I think that's great. Like, um, I don't think knowing the most amount of self defense helps you, but knowing how to do like 5 essential ones really, really well and having repetition in is the smart way to go, in my opinion.
Hmm.
So that's definitely one thing. I also think the structure has gotten a lot better in the martial arts. Like, for example, if I think back to my dad's school, if you watched a class of 30 people, probably you saw 20 different uniform combinations in that class, including some red, white, and blue stars and stripes.
Oh yeah.
So that part has changed as well. I think the training definitely was much more like strict by the book, no cracking jokes in class, like that type of thing. And when I started teaching, that like I always like using humor when I teach with my students, and like I was cracking dad jokes at like 16 in my classes because like I wanted the kids to have fun while they were training and not just like be afraid. And it was also back in the day we had the, like, if you wanted to go to the bathroom, you had to do 25 knuckle push-ups when you came back type of thing. So you'd have kids like pee in their pants because they didn't want to do push-ups.
Right.
So like all of that sort of like old school mentality. And I'm good friends with Jotty Tension, and he has a great quote that says, don't pass on your trauma from your instructor to your students. So I think that the martial arts instructors that have been able to overlook the trauma that they receive from their martial arts instructor and actually modernize what they're doing for kids now, I think those are the school owners that are really going to win with what they're doing. And I don't think, I'm not saying you should be soft on your students or you shouldn't expect like a certain level of standards, but I think you do have to modernize what you're doing in your school to make it work with modern day society while still be able to output a high quality product on the mat.
Hmm.
So I think a lot has definitely changed in that aspect. And I think too, like our school, my dad did Hapkido, Tangsudo, Kabuto, Judo, God, probably some Eskrima and Kali in there, and it was like just like a melting pot of sort of everything. That's probably why the curriculum was so insane for
Right.
everything that you learned. But I also think communication has gotten a lot better with the curriculum as well. Like you're supposed to test every 3 months coming up through my dad's, but like some people, like you said, some people had same belt for like 6 months a year, and it was just like sort of figuring it out. And now I think with like all the apps and stuff schools have now, you can easily access all the curriculum. And I think it's just a lot easier for students to train. You don't have to be in the school 3 hours a day training to get the same amount of knowledge that you can now with everything online. So I think that aspect is moving in the right direction as long as the quality is staying there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the biggest things from my perspective that I've noticed is the focus on the experience a student has in the
Yes.
school,
Yep.
right? Because when I was coming up the ranks, I'm sure when you were coming up the ranks, it was kind of like, this is the standard, this is where you need to be, and if you're not there, you're just not there, right?
Yep.
And I was just at a black belt test this weekend talking with my instructor, and we always kind of talk about how we lost a lot of really good people because we had expectations that just really were unrealistic for that person, and it wasn't about making that person their best. It was all about, like, I want to have the best students, period,
Ego
right?
focused.
It totally. And
Yeah.
so now, and then over the years, I think that there was like this huge focus on experience, like everybody talks about the Disney experience or whatever, right?
Yep.
And it almost lost the martial arts and the
Yep.
quality. And I think we've come back around and kind of blended those two, because for
Yes.
me, the most important thing is the culture in my school. I mean, my goal is, I want to see these kids start at 3 and become an instructor. I want to see them,
Yep.
maybe own a school one day. I want to see them live the martial arts lifestyle. And talking about that, living the martial arts lifestyle. One of the things that we face in our schools is everybody's playing competitive baseball and soccer and all these
But
other sports and other activities. And you talked about practice time and that kind of stuff. It's like, it's really hard to fit
it
in
is.
3, 4, 5 classes or days a week of training when you have all these other activities. Did you play other sports or do any other activities when you were a kid other than
Yeah,
martial
I
arts?
did. I was fortunate too because my brother, it was like you only get to do martial arts. My brother's 8 years older, for those of you guys that don't know. So like he didn't really have a choice. But for me, I did basketball all through middle school and into high school, and then in high school I did gymnastics as well. And I was still teaching regular hours, but I remember you do 3 hours every day of gymnastics, and then I go straight to the school afterwards and teach the rest of the night. And so it's a lot. I was the only high school kid that I knew of in our class that was working full time. and
Yeah.
doing an extracurricular activity. And I was grateful though that my parents pushed me to do other things besides martial arts, because like gymnastics, the conditioning was insane. And I like sometimes I think my parents were hard on me training, or my brother was, and I'd be like, oh, they're just doing this because I'm part of the family. Like they're just being hard on me. And then I went to gymnastics, and it's like, holy crap, this is way harder than what I was getting put through in the martial arts side as far as conditioning goes. And I thought I was being like bullied just for being in the family type of thing. So I think it was good to have that outside perspective. And then the interesting thing for me was being around like really good martial arts instructors my whole life. When I went to do other sports, it was really easy to spot like the crappy coaches that just probably should never have been a coach. And it was interesting to be able to pick up on those things at a young age. But yeah, I still love doing basketball to this day. Gymnastics worked great when I was competing because with all the tricking and all that stuff coming out around the same time, just sort of all blended together. And then also just helped me to understand my body movement and even better. And it's been cool to still be able to train kids on that even after I stopped doing gymnastics.
Very cool. So you talked about some of the styles that your dad taught as part of his school and
Yep.
his system. You mentioned Tong Sudo, which is my background. I started
Yes.
in 1985 in American Tong Sudo. Under my instructor was under Chuck Norris and Pat Johnson.
Okay.
Was that one of your main styles, or what was kind of your main
Yeah.
focus and system?
So the two main styles that he did were Tangsudo and Hapkido. So Tangsudo, we did like all the peon forms, which I know are sometimes called Hinan or all different things. So that was like the main forms, kicking, punching part of the martial arts that we did. And the Hapkido is like the biggest self-defense element. And we did Sinmu Hapkido, which like Dojin Mji Hanje is the founder of that. So I got really good tolerance of joint locks and pressure points from having all of them done on me as a kid multiple times. But those are the main things. And then I don't know if you can say we did traditional Kabuto. I think my dad just called it Kabuto, but it was like weapons training influence from a lot of different people that he trained with, type of thing. We did everything from like Tonfa's size sword. We did Danbon, which is like short stick, Kubaton, like everything that you would walk into like a martial arts store in Chinatown and see like they had on the walls. We did at my dad's martial arts school at some point.
Right.
Yeah.
And then did you get into competition as a black belt, or did you start competing before you were a black belt?
So my first tournament, well, we did some like local tournaments when I was like a white belt and yellow belt, but I don't really consider those. But my first national tournament was AK Grand Nationals, and I was a red belt. I remember we had 9 people in my division, and they gave out places 1 through 8, and I got 9th in forms and weapons. So I was the only one that didn't step forward to get an award. And then for sparring, we had 4 kids in our division, and I got 4th at that tournament. But the one thing that sort of changed my perspective of that tournament is there's this guy in the ring next to me, and I remember seeing him. And he's doing these crazy jump kicks like I've never seen before. And I just saw that, and I was like, that's so different from what we do, but it looks so much more fun than like what we were doing. And nothing against like the martial arts that we're doing. It just me being like a 9 or 10-year-old kid seeing that, it was just like next level. And that guy was Mike Chat. So I saw Mike Chat competing, and I was like, man, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to learn. So we started, like, I remember back in the day, I would watch, go to tournaments, I'd record people with my VHS like recorder back in the day, and I would sit there, play, rewind, slow motion, like tracking issues on the VHS. And that's how I learned to start doing jump kicks. And tricking was like just watching recordings of competitors and just replaying them all the time. And then when I found out about Black and Blue Productions back in the day, I started ordering all those VHS tapes, and I'd save my money for them and just study those like crazy until I actually got to start like being in a spot where I could pay Mike Chat to do private lessons, or I could go train with some of the top competitors. And that's when I really started accelerating like on the competition circuit, and competed pretty regularly until I was about probably 19, until I went to college. And then would do tournaments just here and there at that point.
Right on. Well, hey, we have someone on here. Want to say hey to? Oh, it says hi. Hey, Master Flame, how you been? I've been good. I've been really good. How about you? If you have any questions for Adam Kifer, please jump in and let us know. So you mentioned after competition, you went off to college. So what was your goal, and what was your focus when you were going off to college?
So that was the problem. When I went to college, I didn't have a goal. I went for what people told me to go for at the time. So everyone was like, "Oh, you should go for a business degree," and I didn't really know what that meant at the time. It was just like, "Oh, you should do that so you can open up your own school and all this stuff." So literally, my first semester at college was my last semester at college. The first time I went, so I went, and I think part of it too was about a month or so into starting. My dad lost an instructor that was doing all his lessons. He's like, "Hey," he's like, "You can stay in college, but I need you to drive back every night and do 2 hours of intros Monday through Friday." And my college was about an hour and a half from the school. So I'd get done with classes. I'd drive an hour and a half, teach 2 hours, drive back. And by the time I get back, it'd be like 9 o'clock. And I'd be trying to do homework. And I was smart by selecting a 7 a.m. class for some reason. I don't know what that was about. But so then grades just started to suffer as a result. I ended up going back to college when I was about 24. And actually, at the time, I wanted to be a recording engineer because I had DJ'd for about 7 years in Chicago. So I went to school for that. And then in my last semester is when I got offered the job in New York to go work with Michael. So I was like, I can finish the last semester, but I sort of feel like I learned what I needed to. Or I can go and actually start my career and like really get into the marketing and that side of things. And that's when I decided to pack up my family and go to New York.
All right. So talk about that a little bit, about the experience working for the Perella company and the whole iLoveKickboxing and everything that you did there.
So it was a lot of learning what to do and what not to do while I was there, for sure. I have the utmost respect for Michael because of what he did for our industry. Like, he introduced the paid trial model and really helped a lot of people to have success that they hadn't seen before. Getting there and working there, it was not very organized behind the scenes, for sure. So it was a lot of like figuring it out. The culture was not great there. I was also getting there at a time that they were going through a lot of changes and things with personnel and the people that were there. So I get that part of it too. But I think some of the biggest things I learned there was like results are the only thing that matters, essentially. So I was working probably 16-hour days most of the days that I was in New York, and with the goal of just making sure that we were getting the results that we needed. And the longer I was there, the more they're cutting back on other areas of the marketing team or whatever. So at one point, like when I got moved over to iLoveKickboxing, they used to have a marketing team of 7 people, and then it was that team quit. The head of marketing ended up getting let go, and then I got moved over, and I was the one guy trying to do the job of 7. When I got moved over into that role, which was interesting. But the great things about being in New York, though, was like I got introduced to a network of people that I probably wouldn't have met on my own, and just learned a lot from just being around the right group of people, and just made some like lifelong networking relationships and friendships with people in different industries that had like different levels of success and also different perspectives from what we had in our industry, which was, I think, super important for me. The other thing is that I really learned a lot about digital marketing while I was there. So obviously, Michael had a great background in websites and marketing, and as I got there, he taught me a lot of the basics and really just a lot of like lessons of what to do and what not to do. And then because of the budget that I had for running ads for 350 locations, like we would do like $3 million in ad spend in a month. Sorry, not a month, 3 million in a year, but still that's a lot per month in ad spend. I got to do a lot of testing. So I got to pretty essentially, I don't want to say waste, but use a lot of money to just figure out what worked and what didn't. And I don't think I would have picked up marketing, like digital marketing, as fast as I would have on my own, because I wouldn't have had a budget to be able to really test things out. And like we're testing like what button gets most clicks, blue or green, like all these little things just to sort of see the psychology of it. And then the one really great thing for being out there was in our office, there's this giant book library of like a bunch of business marketing books, all of that. And not many people grabbed it, but like I was like, that was really when I got into reading and working on my own personal growth, because I had access to like pretty much whatever book I wanted on the business side. So I experienced just a lot of personal growth just being there. And then as things started to decline with iLoveKickboxing in the business, that was sort of the point where I was learning like a lot of what not to do, just sort of seeing why the current state was the way it was and what decisions led up to the point of getting there. I think it helped me to be a better leader right now for our agency and our school, because I saw like a lot of the things and feedback from other coworkers and employees of things they did or didn't like. And I was like, man, when I have my own thing, I'm not going to do it this way. I'm going to do it this way instead. And it was just the experience was invaluable just from being there. And even though it may have been super stressful and crazy hours while I was there, I wouldn't trade it, because I wouldn't be where I am without being there for the years that I was.
Yeah, sounds like, I mean, anytime you have the opportunity to get outside of your bubble, get outside of your normal routine and network, I really like that you talked about that, networking with people outside of the industry as well,
Yeah.
because I think that our martial arts industry is one of the only industries that like kind of just stays here a lot and doesn't
Yes.
really
That's the
look
crazy.
at what the other industries are doing or how it could help us, especially in the area of marketing, but just also in customer service. I
Yeah,
mean, we come
service
from
is
this
huge.
traditional background of the student is our customers are students and only students, and we don't tend to look at them
Yep.
as customers often enough, because I mean, essentially they're paying our bills, right? They're keeping the school open. They're what makes it all work. And there's a big balance between giving people what they need and also
Yep.
giving them what they want. And I think that that's
100%.
something that we can talk a little bit about. Real quick, want to give a shout out, Josh Arshma
Josh.
watching. He's saying, "What's up, cool dude?"
Josh is a good dude.
Yeah, absolutely. Had him on the show months ago. Super great conversation. Really good guy. Awesome martial artist, as a matter of fact, too. So you talked about, so you went from Chicago to New York, and then when you left New York, you moved to Arizona.
Yep.
Yeah, and we're talking what, 5, 6 years ago is what you said?
I know. So I moved here about a year and a half ago.
Oh, okay. So this
Yeah.
was real recent. Okay.
Very recent. So it was funny. I was in New York, and I was still doing some coaching for martial arts schools just on the side. It was just like a handful of schools, nothing crazy. And one of the schools I was coaching was out here, and they had a business partner that called me up, and he's like, "Hey," he goes, "School's not where I wanted to be. Can you come out and train the team for a week?" So I was like, "Oh, yeah, definitely." So they paid me to come out and train them for a week. While I was out here, he was worried about not getting his personal guarantee on the lease back with the owners that were in place. So he's like, "Hey," he's like, "Can you come work for me?" And I was like, "You know what? I don't want to work for anyone ever again." It's like, I want to be my own boss and really lead the entrepreneur life. And he's like, "All right, I get that." And then came back, and about a month later, he called me back up, and gave me another offer, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm all right." And then a couple weeks later, he's like, all right, he's like, come out. He's like, why don't you take over the school? We're gonna give you equity. And he's like, if there's ever any other businesses you want to start, he's like, I'll support you on that. He's like, just let me know how I can support you. So I was like, well, I want to create an agency because that's what I've been doing for the last like 2 years out here in New York. And I was like, and I think I can fix the school. And the school is doing about, it wasn't like awful, but it was doing like 19 grand a month. But the average student value was super low. And so I officially moved out here in February of 2020. We had the best February the school's ever had. We did $42,000 that month. We enrolled 45 new members. And then the next month, COVID hit.
Right.
So COVID hit, and I was like, oh, great timing. So the great thing about it, though, was being sort of in the corporate world, I guess you could call it, for a little bit. I was super familiar with Zoom. And I immediately knew like that was the way to go as soon as we knew that there is an impending shutdown possibly. So we were able to pivot really fast. We kept a majority of the students. And then the funny thing is, about 2 months into COVID. So when I got to the school, we had two business partners. We had Travis, who's still my business partner. We had another business partner that was the previous owner. 2 months in, the previous owner goes, I don't want to do this anymore. And she's like, I'm out. And I was like, all right. So we were in the middle of the pandemic. We're doing things. I was teaching from my backyard virtually, all the classes. And I was like, and we got to keep students, and they've only known me for 2 months. So I was like, no rapport really built up besides the little time I've been there. But we were able to come out strong. We got a great team that I was able to put in place, and it's doing about $60,000 a month consistently now. With me being there 1 hour a week, which is amazing. And it's just a testament to the team that we have there. And the culture has completely changed since we took over. And it's been a really cool thing to see happen. And we did like a complete brand refresh, new systems, completely changed all the curriculum, like you name it, we changed it in the school. And at the same time, since we were pretty much doing a rehaul and developing systems from scratch, it gave us a really duplicatable model. So going forward, so our goal is in the next 5 years, we want 10 locations up. Currently looking for location 2, and we're sort of going with the small school, big profit model, like where we can get 200 members and have it profiting 20 grand a month is sort of the goal for each future location. And I'm excited. Like I'm ready to blow this thing up.
Yeah. So now this is your first go at your own school, though. Is that right?
Yeah. So yeah, it's the first time I've owned a school.
Yeah. So prior to that, you taught at your dad's school. You helped consult with the other schools, but this is the first school that you've actually opened on your own.
Yep.
Or taken over on your own. So, well, good for you. That's awesome. Hey, we had a question, and just because we're talking about digital marketing, explain that to the people that maybe are just like, well, what even is digital marketing?
Yeah. So digital marketing can be a wide range of things, but it's pretty much anything that's online marketing to attract new members to your business. So it could be SEO and getting higher search rankings, Google ads, Facebook ads, Instagram, TikTok ads, YouTube ads. There's so many routes online now to be able to get in front of people. Using podcasts could be a form of digital marketing, right? There's so many options out there. And we do organic stuff, but really where we get a majority of our students is coming from the paid marketing side and running ads on Facebook and Instagram. We're testing TikTok pretty heavily right now. Also YouTube is something that I think starting next year, I think YouTube and TikTok are going to overtake Facebook as far as paid marketing goes. So right now we're doing a lot of action on those two platforms just to prepare for where we think everything is going. But a typical like digital marketing funnel for martial arts is you have a landing page or a website. You're putting ads up on Facebook and Instagram with the goal of collecting the lead. So name, email, phone number, and then having some sort of follow-up in place. And in my opinion, the more automated the follow-up can be, the easier it is to convert people. We were probably a year ago, we're 50 to 60% leads converting into paid trials was where we were. And we were super happy with that. For the first time ever, our team last month did 100% lead to paid trial conversion because they just got the follow-up so honed in that within like a minute of someone going on our website, they're getting a phone call and a text message like instantly. And they've been working really hard to stay up on that, which has been huge. But yeah, that's sort of what we're doing right now on the digital marketing side. But for us, we're not afraid to invest in the marketing because we know the return on it is going to be there. And a lot of our clients we're seeing that come with the same attitude are just crushing it right now. And we've had multiple clients that are opening their second or third or fourth location since they've been with us. And that's the most rewarding part, is to see the industry getting pushed forward like that, and like people being able to really scale faster than they even thought that they would. But yeah, it's all from doing that combination of digital marketing.
And one of the biggest challenges for martial arts schools is now I'm getting all these leads, I'm getting all these new students, I'm filling up my schools, and it's just me, right?
Sure.
But you talked about creating a team in a very short time
Yeah.
in a school that was not brought up in your culture. It had to be changed over. How did you create that team in such a short time?
That was a fun process. So first thing I did is I was like, I know if I'm teaching every single class that we're not going to be able to scale the business.
Right.
So at the beginning, I was teaching every single class. And then I was like, who have I taught that would be willing to work to actually move to Arizona and come learn this new business that I'm developing? So I had a student, Scott, that I've been teaching since he was 3 years old in Chicago. And I knew he was sort of looking for work at the time. And I just called him up. I was like, hey, crazy idea. Just listen to me for a second. I was like, I just took over the school in Arizona. I want to build out a team. I'm like, hey, any interest in flying out? And he was, I think, 22 at the time. So he's still a young kid in my opinion. And so he's like, I got nothing else I'm doing. So he literally drove up the same week, and we had him stay with us to start with. We're like, you'll stay with us for a month, and then COVID hit and it turned into a year, but that's all right. It was worth it. So he came out as our head instructor. And then at the time, because of COVID, they got rid of like their entire staff. And actually, the funny story, when we first got there and Scott came in the month before COVID, a 10-year-old kid walked up to him that was a student, and he goes, are you a new coach here? And Scott's like, yeah. He goes, new coaches don't last long here. And then the kid walked away. It's sort of a 10-year-old, because there's so much turnover before that, right? So there wasn't like an established staff really there for us to be able to pull in place. So Scott was the first hire. And then I went to Indeed for the rest of it. So we posted ads up on Indeed. We hired one front desk person that was super great at sales. Like when we first got her, awfully toxic in every other aspect. So she did great to help us grow. In 2 to 3 months, she was with us because she could sell like crazy. But the toxic part of it, I didn't want it to infect our culture. So we got rid of her, even though she was crushing it with sales. And then I had this girl come in that was a former swim teacher. And I was talking to her, and I was like, I think she'd be good at front desk. She's now the manager of our school, has no martial arts experience, but closes consistently between 85 and 95%. She had a couple 100% closing months as well, where we had 20 plus new members, and she enrolled literally every single person that walked in the door. We hired a kid that was trained in BJJ at a school down the street. He saw one of our Indeed ads and came in, no teaching experience, but he would come and sit for like 6 hours in a row and watch all of our classes. And I was like, all right, he has the passion. He has like the want for it. So now I just need to teach him the skill. So I was fortunate because I already had an instructor certification course that I had put together. So he did some online training, in-person training, and we were able to sort of excel the speed as he was growing. And now we had our holiday party this weekend. We had 11 people, paid staff members at that school, doing all different roles. Some of them are only working a couple hours a week, but we were able just to grow. And I think because people saw the culture that our new staff was bringing, all the teenagers and adults were like, I want to learn to teach. Like, when can I start to learn this stuff? And it was funny because we weren't even planning on having like a official instructor training team, but we had so many people asking that we're like, all right, let's start this. Let's start teaching them. And we use Dave Kovar's book a lot. Then I made instructor toolbox to train them, which has been super helpful. And then because I run a martial arts service-based business, a lot of them just jump on the trainings that we're already doing for school owners. So they're getting accelerated learning in the business side of it as well. And right now we're really just focused on building a really strong bench so we can expand really, really fast. But we sort of cracked the nut on how to bring in people that aren't familiar with our and aren't homegrown, because being open or only owning it for a year and a half, there's not much homegrown instructor talent
Right.
to pull in. So we sort of figured that out, and it's nice now because we can have people from inside, outside, all coming in to really make this a massive organization, which is the goal.
And you talked about, massive growth and then creating a staff. But the most important thing is now we've got all these new students. What are you doing that is great for retention? What are you doing that creates that culture in your school and that relationship?
So being totally transparent, when we first started signing up people like crazy right out of COVID, like we enrolled over 100 people in probably 90 days coming out of COVID, which I know a lot of people had similar success, but they weren't sticking around at first. And I was like, well, we got to figure this out. Like, what's going on? So we reevaluated like every system we had in place, because what worked for like 120 students wasn't working for 300. And
Right.
so we had to sort of figure out how to do that. And one of the first things we did is we put together a 90-day onboarding. So for all of our new members, and really it was Michael Burnoff who sort of gave me this idea. After a kid signs up, we do what we call the 90-day pre-frame. So we talk to the kid first and we say, hey, Johnny, we're so excited for you to be a new member. You're going to crush it. We're going to set our first goal for today. So in 90 days, your goal is to earn your gold belt. And then we write the date of the next graduation on his belt. And I want you to set this goal for yourself. And then we say, hey, do you know what a goal is? And whether they say yes or no, we still explain it to the kid. And we say, hey, a goal is a promise to yourself that you're going to finish this no matter what. So can you commit to earning your gold belt? He says yes. Then we go to mom, and we strategically talk to the kid first, because if the kid says yes, which they do 100% of the time, mom or dad's going to agree with it too. So we say, hey, Mrs. Smith, in order for Johnny to reach his goal, he needs an accountability partner. If he could do it by himself, he'd already have a driver's license and be able to rent a car, but he can't. He needs you to bring him and motivate him on the days that he doesn't feel like coming, or when he's tired from being at school all day. So I need your commitment to Johnny that no matter what, you're going to make sure that he hits this 90-day goal. Mom says yes, and then we say, thank you. I knew you were a great parent. So right away, we put in their head that a great parent is one that doesn't let their kid give up or quit. And then we created a 90-day automation using Spark of texts and emails. And then we also use the automations to create reminder tasks for our staff. So the parents are getting the emails that are educating them on what to do when your child doesn't feel like coming to karate, or if they're getting overwhelmed, how to get your kid to practice on their own more, how to use our app, all of that stuff. And then we're also sending like check-in text. So it'll just be a text that they get that's like, hey, you guys are 2 weeks in, just want to check in. How's Johnny loving everything so far? And just those little like touch points. And then also as a part of that 90-day, we have reminders for our team where it'll be like, hey, write a handwritten postcard to Johnny. Send the family a thank you card with a $5 Starbucks gift card inside. So there's all these different member outreach connections happening. And what we found out was that our lead follow-up was so good and the communication was so great. But once they enrolled, all that communication fell off originally. And that's why we weren't keeping them for a long time. Mm-hmm. So I think when we first looked at it, we had like, I'm embarrassed, but we had like a 6-month like average lifetime like stick rate for our members, which is awful. Now it's 18 months. So we've been able to improve that drastically in a short amount of time. And that was a big key of it. And then the one thing I started thinking about was like, well, the same thing's going to happen at Gold Belt now. I was like, we have all this great communication leading up to Gold Belt, and then boom, falls off. So we actually, I worked with a copywriter, and we came out with what we call the Black Belt journey. And pretty much we have that same 90-day sort of onboarding system set up from Gold Belt all the way through Black Belt now. So now they're getting constant check-ins through the entire time, and we've automated the task reminders. So when someone needs to write an awesome card, it happens. That way no student gets missed, because we used to have a giant spreadsheet, and our instructors would pick who they'd write a card to. And the kids that always got cards, your A students, the kids that don't need that extra motivation. So the C students and the B students, they were just sort of getting left in the dust because they weren't the easy kids to teach. So now this makes sure that everyone gets some sort of member outreach throughout their time with us, and it creates that consistently. And the other thing that we really had to do is we had to teach our instructors how to communicate. So the BJJ instructor that I told you that we hired, he was very insecure because he didn't have a belt in our style. So one of the things I picked up on early was that he kept talking about himself to everyone, because that was his way of making him feel qualified for the job. And it wasn't that he had a big ego. He just felt very insecure about like what he was doing. And so I was like, man, we need to teach them how to communicate the right way where they're actually just finding out about as much about the students as possible. So I remember Kelly Murray back in the day taught me the question game and we just drilled this into our staff where it's 30 seconds. You just ask questions about the kid and you learn as much as possible. And then we do different challenges throughout the year with our staff. Like right now we're doing a December connection contest. And basically we have a Slack channel where our team can put in 3 things that they learned about any one of the students or parents in there. And then every time they post something in there about a student, that gets 1 entry. And then at the end of the month, we do a drawing for $300 cash. So it's incentivizing them to work on the communication part of it as well. So now they're connecting and we're getting much less of, oh, when is Coach Scott teaching? Coach Scott's the best. Now the parents are just like, man, you guys have the best team. They're awesome. Even no matter what belt, they always talk to us and show interest in Johnny and all that stuff. So that's been a big part of it. And then the other thing is we do strategic courtesy calls every quarter before we know when like the biggest quit times are. So we do it right before summer. We do it right before back to school. We do it right before going into January 1st as well. And we literally split up our entire list of students. We mark them red, yellow, or green. Green is like, hey, you're a raving fan. Red is like, this person could quit tomorrow. We wouldn't be surprised type of thing. And then yellow is sort of like somewhere in between. And then everyone that's red gets a personal phone call from the head coach, and we give them a free 15-minute private lesson. Everyone that's yellow gets a personal call just to give a progress report about their kid and reframe their next goal. And then everyone that's green, we do just a handwritten card too. So that way there's those outreach happening on top of everything else that we're doing. So now it's this constant systemized process of making sure that every student feels important all the time. And I know it sounds like a lot, but when you have a lot of it automated, like our team's not having to remember to send out emails and text messages. It's just postcard or Loom video is the other thing that we use a lot, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but we'll do personalized videos to our students. So there's a Chrome extension called Loom, and it allows you to do it right from like a computer, and you record and it generates a link automatically to send them. So we'll do essentially like an awesome card in video format. But it creates a different emotional reaction on the parent side because it's like, man, I can't believe Coach Gabe took time to actually make this video for my kid. I can almost guarantee that no other coach or no other program that they have their kid in is going above and beyond like they see our team doing. And that was really our goal with it. We don't even want them to think about baseball or basketball because they would lose the connection with our team.
Yeah. Well, one of the things. A couple things that you said, really make a lot of sense, and not just martial arts industry, but dance schools, gymnastics schools. I mean, any coach could benefit from the conversation we're having, but it's very different, with 50 students to 100 students to 200 students to 300 students, right? And without the proper systems, it's one of the things that I always focus in on with my team is if we don't have a system for what we're doing. We're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants. So if we stick to the system, nobody gets missed. Everything, and we can track it, which is important because if we can't track it, then we don't know if we're making success. But a lot of schools and having coached schools and being a consultant for a number of years, I would have these conversations with my clients and XYZ, you need to do these things, and they're just like, it's too much. I can't wrap my head around it.
Sure.
What do you, when you have conversations when your clients and that comes up to them, they're overwhelmed, what's your advice to them?
So are you talking in regards to systems or just overwhelmed in general with running a business?
Well, I mean, overwhelmed in general, but yeah, I mean, if they don't have systems, I know for sure they're overwhelmed before the day even starts.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but yeah, mostly just in general being overwhelmed. Get your systems in place, but now they're overwhelmed with that. So now what?
Yeah. So on the systems part of that question, I always tell my clients, like, your systems are going to change constantly. As you continue to grow, you're going to be going back and revising your systems. Which the good part about that means is they don't have to be perfect. So if you start just by having an outline, that's better than no systems. And then when you have that outline, then you can add like videos in it. You can add more bullet points. You can really make it more thorough and complete. But at least start with something. The nice thing is our mastermind clients, like I was actually thinking about the same thing. And I did a presentation on systems at our summit, and I showed every single system we have at our school. And we have them classified in 5 categories. We're like foundational, management, CEO systems, marketing systems, event systems. So we have all these different categories. And I showed every single system that we have in those. And like everyone just looked at it, and you could just see the overwhelm on their face of like, I don't know how I'm going to make all of those. So we actually gave them all to our mastermind clients because we're like, here's the templates. Now you just need to change them for you. And that got rid of a lot of the overwhelm. But for you guys starting off that maybe don't have access to those, it's just making sure that you're documenting, right? So like you're never going to be able to train correctly without the right systems in place, because otherwise they're only reliant on coming back to you all the time to find the answer for things instead of looking at a written system that actually guides them on what to do. Also, you're going to see a lot of inconsistencies in your business without systems in place, because everyone's going to sort of do it their way. It's like when you go to Starbucks, I can order a caramel macchiato at this Starbucks and this one, and they taste the same. But if there was no systems in place, if they didn't have those ingredient cards at Starbucks, this guy might like a little cinnamon with his caramel macchiato when he makes it. This guy might like using soy milk with his, and it's not going to be the same experience every single time. And so the same thing is true for you guys. But just start, like, look at whatever the biggest weakness is in your business, okay, and start with that first. Like, just outline it, okay, start using it, and then you're going to find out it works or it doesn't, or pieces of it work or it doesn't, and then you tweak. And when we did systems for MX, like, man, a lot of the systems we put in the first time didn't work, or they didn't work completely, or we had to tweak things, right? Like, we thought our retention system was great until we started increasing the volume of number of students we were signing up, and then we found out our retention system sucked. But we're just self-aware. We're like, all right, we know this sucks. Like, let's figure out a solution. And then as far as like general overwhelm on the entrepreneur part, because this is something that I used to experience all the time, and I know it's super, super common. There's this worksheet that I have that I'm happy to share with your audience too, Jason. We call it the 6 questions to clarity. And basically what it does is it helps you figure out what you need to eliminate, automate, or delegate in your business to have more freedom, so you don't feel like it's all on you. Okay. Like, for example, like one of them is just like, column 1 is like, what did your energy go to today? So you just make a list at the end of the night, all the things that you did. Okay. And then you look at that, and you second column's like, all right, well, out of everything I put my energy into, what can I delegate? Okay. So maybe like cleaning the school is something that you're doing constantly. And maybe that's something that you can hire a company to do, or you can delegate to like a teenage team member that wants just some extra cash. Okay. And you're able to delegate that. And then third question is, what systems do I need to be able to delegate everything in column 2? So it just helps you sort of reflect as you go on. And then the last thing is like, hey, is there anything from column 1 that I don't need to be doing at all and is just wasting my time? Okay, because there's a lot of things that we like doing in our business because maybe it's fun for us to do, but maybe it's also not contributing to the growth or the experience or any of that, and you don't actually need to do it. Like early on, I liked doing graphic designing, and I kept doing all the graphic design for my businesses because it was fun, but I wasn't realizing how much it was pulling me away from actually growing the business, creating a better experience, and all of that. And the best thing I did was hire a graphic designer, because then it gave me all this free time to do other things, even though it was something that I love. So I think just being able to sort of separate those things and go through those questions and figure out what you can automate, eliminate, delegate, that will help to free up a lot of the overwhelm you're probably experiencing, because most of the overwhelm comes from my to-do list and then not having enough time in the day to knock out even 2 things on that to-do list. And then I start next day and 5 more things get added, but nothing got crossed out. And then it just keeps compiling, right? So that's big. And then just giving up control, the ability to give up control and let other people fail is huge. I think if we think back to when we first started teaching classes, they probably weren't the best classes. They probably weren't the best quality. But we have this expectation that, well, the instructors I have in my team, if they're not good enough, I shouldn't let them teach. No, they need the experience. Let them teach a section of class. Let them do warm-ups first and actually give them the opportunity to fail. So that way you can coach them up on how to do it correctly, and sort of go back to that mentality that you had when you were first teaching, where you made mistakes all the time and someone gave you the opportunity to fail so that you could become a better teacher. And giving up that control is going to help to give everyone more freedom in their business.
Man, and that's a big one right there, because a lot of us that are martial arts school
Mhm.
owners and instructors, we have this A-type personality to where
Yes,
we just always it's just easier if I do it. If I do it, I get it done,
yep,
and then we just never release that power. But something that I've learned over many years is that when I do relinquish that responsibility or that power or that energy, I'm now empowering someone
yeah,
else to become a leader, who will now in turn have the ability to empower somebody else. And I think that when we hold all of that inside, just for ourselves, because let's face it, who didn't love being the guy on the mat, or
sure,
the instructor, right? Because you love that spotlight and you love that energy. But I can tell you now, after many years of experience, my greatest pride is watching my instructor on the floor
100%.
shine and get all the attention and all the accolades and all the and because I can sit back and go, you know what, I had a part in helping that, and,
Yep,
and that's a great feeling. But it comes with time, maturity, wisdom, whatever you want to call it,
yeah,
experience. But again, whether this is for martial arts school owners, any coach, anybody in general. I mean, we as parents do it too. I'd rather just
100%.
do something because I don't want to have to, follow up after my son did it wrong, or whatever, right?
No,
But
that makes sense.
but that's how they learn. I mean, that's how they learn. Now, real quick before we end here,
Yeah,
you talked about your family a little bit. You picked up your family from New York, and moved out to Arizona. So we didn't really talk much about your family. Tell us
yeah.
a little bit more about them.
Oh, they're everything. They're everything. So I have 3 kids, 2, 4, and 6 years old, all boys. The 4 and 6 year old are doing martial arts now, which has been the greatest thing ever. And going back to the freedom that we just talked about, being able to go watch my kids' class and none of the parents know who I am is the greatest feeling in the world, because I get to just be a dad while I'm there. No one asks me questions about the business, which is awesome. My wife, we've been married. This year was our 10-year wedding anniversary. Without the support that she gives, I would not be able to do anything that I'm doing. And I'm very blessed for the to have the family that I have, and also to have a wife that was cool with me packing up the family and moving twice. Like that's huge. And I think that the one thing that a lot of people get lost in, and I've done this before too, especially when I was in New York, is prioritizing your business so much that the family doesn't get the attention that they need. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the balance may not be there right away, but the communication with your spouse has to be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Have you read the book Winning by Tim Grover, Jason?
No, I have not.
Yeah, put that on your list. It's an awesome book. But there's a chapter that he talks about how his wife or his daughter had a conversation with him about if he was. She said something like, "Are you not home a lot because I should lose more weight or something?" Because he trained athletes all the time, and he's like that like broke his heart, and realized that he had to like communicate to his family more about why he was away, and like how this was a sacrifice he was making for future success. And
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of us as entrepreneurs, we forget to have those conversations with our kids and with our wives and or our spouses, and that's something so powerful that'll help everything be more congruent on the home front. Is just
Mm-hmm.
having those transparent conversations. Like we just threw this big event, and my wife and I had a conversation in January, and the event was in November. I go, hey, I know 2 to 3 months before the event, I'm not going to be home that much because I'm going to be planning, I'm going to be doing all this thing. But when you're at the event, you'll see why I'm actually doing all of that and why I'm sacrificing that time. And it's for us and it's for the kids and all that stuff. And that conversation was huge because it made her even more supportive of getting ready for the event and all the time that we were putting into it. And then when she was at the event, she realized, like, I know why you did this. I see
Mm-hmm.
the full picture now. And
Right.
I think those conversations are so crucial with your significant other, to have those, that you guys always stay on the same page. Because I see a lot of school owners that are struggling on the personal side at home, or just
Yeah.
business owners in general. And I think a lot of times just missing those conversations, or like I'm big also just sending my wife a text like during the day, just like, hey, thinking about you. I'm so appreciative of everything you're doing. I know being home with
Mm-hmm.
3 kids is probably more work than what I'm doing right now on a daily
Right.
basis. I love you for it, and I appreciate you for it. And if you guys get one thing out of this call, like send your spouse a text today, just telling them that, hey, I appreciate your support and everything that you've been doing to help me get where I am.
Yeah. Well, on that front, when you started talking about that, I pulled up an image that I have on my phone, and let's see if it's by Walt Disney, and it says a man should never neglect his family for business.
Yep.
And I have saved that on my phone since July 30th, 2014. I must have been at a
Love that.
super show or something like that at that time. But it's something that I think about often. And, I'm fortunate that my wife is my partner in our
Yeah.
businesses, the karate school, our restaurant, a new business venture we're going to be dropping in soon. And, man, it just, you're so right about the communication, because sometimes, like, all we do is communicate about the business,
Business.
or we're
Yes.
so focused on the day to day, and it's like, what, we just need to take time out for us, and have lunch or go out
Yeah.
to dinner, and not talk about the business.
Yes.
But it is important, that we have that communication. I'm going to pull up this last question here, and Kevin asked this one to almost all of our guests, because I think it's an important one, because I have a 16-year-old son, and he'll be 17 next year. My daughter's 19. They both train with me. He has two kids that he trains. He says, "What's your best advice you can give to an instructor when it comes to coaching your own kid?"
Don't. So, growing up as someone that trained with my dad, I always excelled more when it was one of the other instructors working with me, because I didn't take things personal when it was from the other instructor. If it was my dad, even my dad's intentions were great when he was training me, but I still took it personal because it was my dad. So
Yeah.
I love that my kids train from my instructors. And then, like, when we're at home on Sundays, I'll pull out the mitts and we'll do some like mitt work in the backyard, or we'll train in the backyard that way. And for me, it's, I usually do that for goal setting for them. So we'll set a goal, be like, hey, I want to see if we can do like 300 punches while we're training outside, or 300 kicks, or whatever it is.
Hmm.
And we'll set a goal and we'll go train outside a little bit and do it that way. But at the school, I leave the instructors to do it. I want them to be the coaches, so that way I still have the dad and coach separation. They know dad knows martial arts, and dad knows what he's doing when he trains them at home. But at the school, I actually prefer them to learn from the rest of the team.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that in a lot of ways. I mean, I've coached my son since he was, 2.5, 3 years old, and not only in martial arts, but then in baseball. And there's always just kind of that hint of, sometimes, dad's expectations are higher on me than
Yeah,
they are on others, or there's that little hint of
that's
resentment, because I'm
exactly
always,
what I would do.
I'm always pushing too hard, or I've been fortunate to allow my son to train with other instructors, and it is a great feeling to just be a dad sometimes.
It is.
I really do love to just kind of sit back and watch him, and not have to coach him or have to train him.
Yep.
And I learned probably, well, I mean, my son is 16, and I probably learned it a little bit too late. But one of the most important things that I would remind myself to tell him every time he trained, every time he played a game, every time he did something, is just, at the end of it all, tell him, you know what? One of my favorite things is just to watch you. I just
Yep.
really enjoy watching you, instead of the critique, the criticism, the
Yep.
correction, because that's what our brain naturally
Oh,
thinks. You should have
100%.
done this, should have done
100%.
that. Why didn't you do this? And I found myself being that coach at one time, pushing really hard, and I could feel the strain that it caused. But when I started really to get down to it, my son hasn't played baseball in a few years now, and it's probably one of my favorite memories, because I really just got to be a kind of more of a dad. I still
Yeah,
coach, but, like, and I would tell him all the time, I just love watching you play. I just really love watching. He's a high school wrestler now, and I just love watching him. And I make sure that I tell him that all the time. I think that that's an important thing as a dad,
agreed.
is just letting them know how much you love watching them, because they're gonna listen. I already know. First of all, I know Kevin's kids are gonna be freaking rock stars. His
Yeah,
son Jet is
they're already
amazing.
crushing
I
it.
mean, just, oh my god, killing it. But just keep telling them how much you love watching them. I think that's a really important thing. But hey, Adam, we're at the hour 5 mark, and I
Awesome.
know you probably got some stuff to get to, and I'm going to get to it today. But I appreciate your time and your
Yeah,
energy, and all the lessons and just kind of sharing your experience. I hope that everybody watching got a lot out of this. Do me a favor and just spend the next 20 to 30 seconds. What would be your greatest motivational advice to anybody watching in any business, in any industry? What do you want to leave them with today?
That's a great question that I was not prepared for. But I think I'll say this: never feel guilty for working on yourself. Because I think as an entrepreneur, it's easy to feel guilty for neglecting the business, or you're going to have people around you that tell you work too hard, or you do too much, or you shouldn't be working out as much as you do because you have a business to focus on, all this stuff. And I think that's all toxic, like talk that's going in your head. So I think taking time to educate yourself by doing courses, reading, Audible, like any of those things, take the time to do that and never feel guilty. Same thing with your physical health, right? You can be a better parent, you can be a better leader and a better business owner when you're healthy, a healthier human being. Okay, you have more energy, you have more clarity. So never feel bad about taking time to actually just work on yourself and feel better and healthier, because it'll give you much more clarity to move forward, and you're going to make better decisions. You'll be a better person to be around. And man, especially if you're a parent, you're going to be able to last a lot longer playing with your kids too.
Yeah, I love that. I really enjoy hearing you say that. Never feel guilty about working on yourself,
Yeah,
because we so often get focused on goals, finances, the business, all these things. And at the end of the day, when you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of your business. If you're not
100%.
taking care of yourself, you can't take care of your family. You can't take care of yourself. You can't impact your community. So I think that that's crucial, and that's really a great lesson to leave everybody with. So thank you again so much.
Thank you for
I'm
having
gonna
me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll send you a link for this video, and
Cool.
anybody watching this, please throw your comments in there. Let us know what you took away from this video. And I look forward to having Rich Grogan coming up next week, and then we got Ali Albarigo coming up the week after that, and then a whole slew of guests coming up for 2022. So I'm gonna keep this going. I mean, it's been great having over 50 guests just share their inspiration and motivation. So thanks for being
That's
one of them,
awesome.
Adam.
Yeah,
Hey man,
my pleasure.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you for having me.
Yeah, and everybody have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Look forward to seeing everybody potentially at the Martial Arts Super Show or one of the other martial arts events anywhere in the country over the next the next year, 2022. So thanks again, guys, and go out and make it a great week. Take care, Adam.
Thanks, Jason.